So, hello everybody, welcome to this live session where I'm going to be talking about this topic. If I can get got the beach ball going on this, not letting me share the slides, never mind. So, I'm going to be talking about this topic of the expectation effect, and I'm going to explore why it's really important to understand the expectation effect because it can affect your energy, your stress levels, your sleep, and more. So, just to be clear, ME, CFS, fibromyalgia are real physical conditions. And it's also important to understand the mind body connection because your mind and brain affects your health, your energy. So, we'll explore in this session the mind body connection and how you can use the mind brain to harness the power of expectations. I'll share 3 steps to help you do this. So I invite you right now to just close your eyes for a moment, as long as it's safe to do so. And I invite you just to take a breath, breathe in through your nose, into your belly, breathe out of your nose, as long as that's comfortable. Just allow your out breath to be a little longer than your in breath. As you breathe in, breathing in the oxygen, which is nourishing your body, nourishing your cells. As you breathe out, allowing your mind and body to relax, soften, and let go. As you allow your mind and body to relax, I invite you to consider this quote. Every morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters most. So just let me know that you can see me and hear me. You can open your eyes now, and if you're watching live, just put a hello in the chat. Let me know you can hear me. If you're watching the replay, just put hashtag replay. I really appreciate your interaction. It helps other people see the video. And if you've got any questions, just pop them in the chat. So I've got a quote already. Okay, I have no idea what that's talking about, so I'm not going to respond to that at the moment. And so let's talk about this issue. So just to introduce myself, my name's Simon Pimenta. I had ME/CFS for 9 years, and what helped me most was understanding the mind-body connection and learning practical strategies to help me move forward. So I now create videos and resources to help you move towards your health goals. And I've created lots of playlists on my YouTube channel, so do check them out. And as I say, if you like this video, do leave a comment, do leave a like, and share with others. So why is this issue important to explore? Well, your mind and brain are powerful, and I'll give you a few examples of that in a moment. Our expectations can influence our experience positively and negatively. Some of the mistakes people make is they have the belief that they can't influence their health. They ignore the mind-body connection, and so they ignore opportunities to influence their health to support their body's healing. So what do we need to understand? Firstly, it's important to understand the mind-body connection. So there are some really interesting examples of the mind-body connection in David Robson's book, The Expectation Effect. I'll give you a few examples that he talks about. Firstly, the placebo effect. We know that if you give people an inert tablet, some people will experience benefit based on the power of their belief. Okay, so they'll experience positive effects even though they're given an inert tablet. We also know about the nocebo effect. This is where we expect a negative effect from taking some medical intervention. And there's an interesting example that I've probably talked about before of a woman who had an allergy to roses, and her doctor showed her a plastic rose, and she started having an allergic reaction because she thought the rose was real. I've had colleagues tell me I remember one colleague telling me that she had an allergy to nuts. And obviously that's a very serious condition, it can be life-threatening. But she was reading about allergies and nut allergies, and she started noticing that she was having an allergic response. And I was on holiday just the week just gone by. I only got back yesterday, and I was telling someone about the understanding we have about allergies, how it's an overreaction of the immune system. And one of my friends who I told this had an interesting experience as a result of the information I shared. What I was saying is that the allergic response is a bit like sending in the army to clear rubbish in the street. It's an overreaction. And just sharing some information about allergies kind of affected my friend's mindset. And I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But consider, what are the implications of the placebo and nocebo effect? For me, the issue is that our beliefs affect our health. Okay? So that's the first thing we need to understand, is the mind-body connection. The second thing we need to understand is the role of the brain. The role of the brain is, number one, to keep you safe, and number two, to save energy. And one of the ways the brain does that is to create beliefs. So, for example, some of our beliefs serve us, they're useful. So, for example, I might have the belief that it's sensible to wear oven gloves when I'm taking something out of the oven. It's sensible, if I have a virus and I'm experiencing flu-like symptoms, to conserve my energy, because my body is doing work to heal from that virus. Okay. It's also the case that our beliefs can limit us. For instance, when I had ME/CFS, I had the belief that my body wasn't working. Now, at one point, that was an accurate belief as far as I understood it. Okay. Now, some people have the belief that my body won't heal. I can't recover. Okay. That is going to cause stress. And the fact is, we don't have a crystal ball, so we can't predict the future. Okay. Sometimes I had the belief that doing a physical activity wasn't going to go well, and this created stress in my body. And that stress meant that my body wasn't doing healing. Okay. And so I was experiencing my body not working. All right. So that is often how I would respond to doing activity. I'd feel some anxiety. That anxiety would help drive the symptoms. When I had symptoms, that meant I experienced more anxiety and fatigue. So our expectations can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And our beliefs can be wired so that our responses are conditioned. Okay? Our brain, again, to save energy, looks for patterns. So, for example, someone with an allergic response, when they see a rose, they'll have an allergic response, and that can become a conditioned response. So for me, when I had ME/CFS, at one point I was experiencing insomnia. So every time I thought about going to bed, I'd get stressed because I was worrying that I would experience insomnia the next day when I hadn't slept well. I would be then dwelling on the fact that I hadn't slept well and that I was tired. Now, there's some interesting research that shows that poor sleepers who stress and worry about their sleep have more noticeable effects on their energy than poor sleepers who don't worry about their sleep. Okay. I also had a client who, when the clocks changed, she would wake up at 3 a.m. and it didn't matter if the clocks went forward or back. She'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So we did some work around her beliefs. She learned some strategies for relaxation, and she managed to break that pattern. So how do we do that? How do we use the expectation effect to our advantage? So firstly, we need to identify our expectations and beliefs. So consider, what expectations do you have around healing, recovery, around energy, around activity, around stress and your stress levels, around sleep? Let me know in the chat. Just pop a comment in the chat. Where do you think you have expectations that maybe aren't serving you? So often people are making negative predictions and they have negative expectations. This certainly was the case for me. As I say, I would be stressing about my sleep quality. I'd be stressing about doing physical activity. And that actually meant that I was depleting my energy. Okay, because when we're stressing, we use our energy more intensively than if we're in a relaxed state. Okay, and sometimes even thinking about doing physical activity would result in stress and my energy would become depleted. Okay, an example actually is that when I was preparing meals, I would be doing it in a very stressed, hurried way because I thought my energy was going to dip, and actually it would have been much better to just do the meal prep in a more relaxed way. So that's the first thing. We need to identify our expectations and our beliefs. Second thing we need to do is to recognize the origin of our beliefs. Okay? When we're faced with a situation, the brain asks the question, what normally happens here? And we access our memory banks, our past experiences, information that we've come across, and the deductions we've made. Okay? So the brain effectively says, well, in the past, this is what happened the last time I did this. For example, the last time I went out for a meal. So now I'm kind of going out for a meal, feeling a bit stressed because I'm remembering what happened last time and maybe the time before and maybe the time before that. Okay, but I'm saying that because I've had that experience in the past, this is what is going to happen. Okay, now the important thing to recognize here is that our past experiences do not dictate your future experiences. Okay, so I did have a slide to illustrate that point, but I can't find my slides at the moment. But let me just repeat that. Our past experiences do not dictate your future. Okay, so first step is to identify your expectations and beliefs. Step 2 is to recognize the origin of your beliefs. Step 3 is to identify pattern breaking strategies. And I'm going to share a few now. So firstly, we need to look at changing our beliefs. Okay, so consider, how often do you predict a good outcome? Okay, how often do you say, my body is healing, my body has incredible potential for healing, my energy is going to improve, I can improve my sleep? Okay, certainly there was a point where those kind of things, those kind of conversations, internal dialogue, are not things I'd be telling myself. I'd be doing the opposite. Okay, so that's the first thing. Start to work on changing your beliefs. Look for the exceptions. For example, when did you do something and you didn't experience payback? Often clients say to me, when I was on holiday, my energy felt better. And in the past, I always used to think the reason for that, one of the reasons for that, was the brain likes novelty. So being in a different environment actually stimulates the brain. Okay, Now, I think there's a second element of that, which is that when we are on holiday, we're breaking associations and we're breaking those conditioned responses. So, for example, as I say, I was on holiday last week with 4 friends. And one of my friends said, it's really interesting when I'm at home, I'm going about my activities. She's a dog walker. She said, my bladder plays up sometimes. I sometimes feel like I need to dash to the loo. And whilst I've been on holiday, that hasn't been happening. And I asked her, why do you think that is? And she said, I really don't know. And I said, well, maybe just have a guess. What do you think might be the reason? And she said, well, actually, I suppose that when I'm at home, there are certain associations. Like if I'm walking, I get to a certain point in the walk in the park when because I've had the previous experience of getting to a certain tree and thinking, oh, I need the loo, that tree becomes a trigger for that thought. And so I was very intrigued by her analysis, and that really gave me food for thought. So another strategy for breaking patterns is to shift our mindset. So as I say, I was telling my friends about allergies and how, because one of my friends did kind of have hay fever, and that was very interesting to me because I had hay fever from about the age of 5 or 6, and I had it until 2007 when I was training to become a hypnotherapist, and we learned strategies for dealing with allergies, and I did it on myself. It was winter, I couldn't really test it. It's only the following year that I suddenly thought, actually, I haven't had hay fever. So I was telling my friend this about, hay allergic reactions being an overreaction. And a couple of days later, he said, actually, that's really interesting. What's really interesting is that every morning up until now, I would get blocked sinuses. And after you told us about allergies, I found that intriguing. And the last 2 days, I've woken up and I haven't had those issues because, he'd literally be blowing his nose and there'd be a pile of tissue on the terrace. And he said, it's gone. And I will check in with him to see how he's doing. But, for 2 days, he didn't have that issue, which he's had for quite a long time. Okay. So another way of changing our mindset is looking for small wins. Okay. So for example, if we're exercising, we can approach it in a playful way. Now, I have made a video on that where I talk about reducing the risk of crashes. So check that out. I think that's the last live session I did. So do check out that video where I go into that in more depth. Okay. So the next pattern breaking strategy is to change our association. So for example, I experienced insomnia, and my insomnia changed when I got to the point where I just stopped caring about the fact that I wasn't sleeping. I just became relaxed about it, and partly I was relaxed about it because I was quite tired. But as soon as that happened, I started sleeping better. Okay, and my sleep now is massively improved. Okay, in general, my sleep's pretty good, and as long as I do enough physical activity, I sleep well. Okay. So another strategy is to delay the response. So for example, I talked about my friend who had issues with her bladder, and she asked me, well, what do I do when I get home? And so we explored that a bit. And another friend who was there also knows about neuroplasticity. And one of the strategies that she identified is that she could just delay the response. So what she recognizes that it's useful for her to just relax and just not to immediately, go to the loo, as long as that's safe for her to do. And she said, yeah, actually that makes a lot of sense. And we don't have to delay very long. We can just start small, but we're just putting a little pause between the stimulus, oh, actually I need the loo, and the response. Okay, so think about how you might apply that to your situation. So for example, when I was doing physical activity and I started to feel symptoms, thinking, oh, I need to stop, I would just pause. I might sit down. I'd just get myself into a relaxed state. And if I felt it was okay to carry on, I would. If I felt I needed to stop there or do something different, I would do that. Final strategy I want to share is that it's really powerful to comfort the part of us that feels a bit scared. All right. There's a particular strategy I teach people doing my Building Resilience course called the See It method. Okay, this is a way of comforting that part of us that gets scared, listening to that part of us so that we can actually create a shift, help that part feel safe. So if you've got any questions, any comments, pop them in the chat. I will read out this comment from Doug saying 4.3.6 cumulative analysis of post-authorization adverse event reports. See the last 9 pages, you dummy. Well, thank you for that positive, constructive comment. Not really sure what you're talking about there. If you want to elaborate, then do. So if you've got any comments, pop them in the chat. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. If you found this video helpful, do subscribe. If you'd like more tips, do check out my playlists on my YouTube channel. As I said, do subscribe on my TikTok channel or Instagram. I have posted more stuff on TikTok. If you like more tips and support, join my Facebook group. I'll put the link below, but comment Facebook and I'll share the link. If you'd like to go faster, then I offer group coaching called Resilience Group Coaching. I do one-to-one coaching. And as I mentioned, I run a course called Building Resilience. If you'd like to have a free chat, which is no obligation, where I share some strategies to help you move forward, then comment chat below. There's absolutely no obligation to buy anything, but if you do want further support, we can also talk about that. So thanks everybody for watching. Keep going. You've got this. Wishing you great health. Bye for now.